It goes without saying that Painkiller is my religion, as I preach about it whenever I get the opportunity to do so, and right now I feel like preaching about Painkiller, but I've already done an entire let's play of the game, as well as a review, so this time I will be ranking each and every level in the greatest first-person shooter ever made, from worst to best, so that I can share with you my personal favourite levels in Painkiller. Now, of course, this list will include all of the levels in Battle Out of Hell as well, so be sure to look forward to seeing those levels show up in the rankings. So without further ado, let's begin. At number 35, we have People Can Fly HQ. Okay, so this isn't much of a level, rather a bonus developer's room for beating Battle Out of Hell on Trauma. There's nothing exactly bad about it, it's just that there's barely any enemies to kill, and they don't even hurt you. The whole level is basically platforming to collect the souls of the developers, so there isn't much to it really, though it should at least get mentioned. At number 34 we have Shadowland. Quite frankly, the final boss of Painkiller Battle Out of Hell is terrible, and is the worst part of Painkiller Black. Unlike the original Painkiller, where the Alastor fight was fantastic, King Alastor on the other hand is not. The fight lacks the spectacle that the original Alastor fight had. Now all you really have is a copy and paste of the original fight's final phase, but with a catch. You can't actually damage him directly. Instead, you have to go through a really obtuse sequence, requiring you to take damage within one of the circles of the level, making a no-hit run literally impossible for this fight. Only then will a golem show up, which may or may not make King Alastor vulnerable to damage. It's purely luck-based, which is really annoying. Hands down the worst proper level in Painkiller Black for this reason alone. Number 33, Pentagon. Remember the giant spider demon that appeared right at the end of Lab that you just killed? Well, now you have to fight another one in what may quite possibly be the most boring level in the entire series. No joke. It's just a small arena with containers littered around, and some cannons. That's it. At least Shadowland had an interesting aesthetic with all the ruined buildings. Pentagon is just kinda bland. While the boss may not be as terrible as Shadowland's boss, it's still one of the worst bosses due to the fact that partway through the fight, the boss gains a shield, and you have to use one of the cannons around the level to break his shield. The game doesn't tell you this of course, and the cannons don't always point towards the boss, so it can be a pain to find the correct cannon to load the shield. To make matters worse, the boss launches homing projectiles, which I can't for the life of me figure out how to properly avoid besides using containers as cover, to the point that doing a no damage run means you have to stay far back and shoot between the containers or you are guaranteed to get hit. Definitely not one of the game's highlights if you ask me. At number 32 we have Swamp. So now we have our first level from the original Painkiller. Now this is nowhere near as bad as the other two boss fights in Battle Out of Hell, but it can still be really annoying, particularly on Trauma. Basically, you're fighting a huge blob that walks around the outskirts of a swamp. You can't shoot him directly, of course, that would be too easy. Instead, you have to shoot the bubbles next to it to both damage him and eventually make him vulnerable. But you only have a brief moment to hurt him before he turns back. When he reverts back to his invulnerable form, the strategy for the fight changes on the fly. Now you have to shoot the bubbles in the air when they are near him, which makes him vulnerable again, but to spawn these bubbles, you have to shoot the bubbles on the outskirts first. Pretty obtuse for a boss fight in a game that's all about mindless shooting if you ask me. Should you manage to figure all of this out, you will still need to deal with the nigh unavoidable attacks this boss throws at you. It will shoot a white orb that instantly kills you on Trauma, and tentacles that can kill you in 2 hits on Trauma, requiring you to bunny hop in a circular motion around the outside of the island to avoid them. It's definitely one of the more frustrating bosses for sure. Number 31, Ruins. Okay, so this boss is a little better since you can actually deal direct damage to his hammer right from the get-go. Though unless you actually aim for the hammer itself, you may not know this. The level is actually pretty cool, putting the Havoc physics to good use. Trouble is that you can often get trapped in the debris, which can be annoying to deal with. Not a bad boss, but certainly not a brilliant one. Once the hammer is destroyed, you can simply shoot him directly and win. Not much to it really, all you have to watch out for is the tremor every time he hits the ground with his hammer, since you can only avoid it by being airborne, though you can usually avoid this by bunny hopping. At number 30 we have Enclave. One of the better bosses for sure. Necrogiant is the first boss the player encounters, and it's certainly an intimidating boss. It has quite a few moves at its disposal, and has 2 phases. There's plenty of ammo to be found around the huge level, and there's also additional enemy spawns that show up part way, though they don't drop any souls. Best of all, you can actually damage this boss directly at the very start, so it isn't obtuse like the rest. Only reason why this is so low on the list is because it's a boss level, and bosses aren't really Painkiller's strong point. At number 29 we have Tower. Arguably my favourite boss in the entire series. Alastor begins the fight completely hidden from view. As players grab the ammo, they can hear his screams in the background. Eventually, Alastor will suddenly emerge when the player least expects him to, and flies across the tower where players can shoot him. He likes to sneak up on players and breathe fire next to the tower as well. Once his health drops, the fight isn't over. Alastor smashes the floor beneath him for 2 additional phases, where you have to fight him on the ground, only for one final phase where he is at the very bottom of the tower, surrounded by pillars which he will drain energy from to heal himself. While he is draining, the statues can be destroyed by any weapon, allowing you to deny him of his healing, which lets you deal the finishing blow on him. I really like the build-up of this fight. It truly is a spectacle, though the fall damage definitely lets this boss fight down, as if you're playing on trauma, it is impossible to survive all the falls unless you land on the archways and pillars below, hence the reason why this level is so low on the list. At number 28 we have Atrium Complex. Atrium Complex is the first non-boss or developer's room level to be mentioned on this list, and it certainly isn't a bad level by any means. Pretty much every level on this list from this point onwards is a great level. I just find Atrium Complex to be the least interesting thematically speaking. The level itself has a lot of destructible explosives to make combat more fun and chaotic, plus it still has that gothic aesthetic you come to expect from the Painkiller series. The level isn't too long either, definitely a great level for sure. At number 27 we have Forest. Now this level is only available to players that are playing on the trauma difficulty, and is without a doubt one of the game's tougher levels. The atmosphere of this level is great. I really love the ruined archways with all the vegetation growing around them. The ambient music is great too when you're not fighting. Definitely one of the more underappreciated songs in the game. The battle music is great too, of course. There's tons of enemies too. The only annoying thing about this level is those damn witches, which are a pain in the ass to kill, since they fly across the arenas at insane speeds. That, and the fact that the level itself is very short, consisting of only 2 large arenas and 1 tiny corridor linking between them, hence why it's so low on the list. At number 26 we have Underworld. Now there are 2 mineshaft stages in Battle Out of Hell, and Underworld is arguably the worst of the 2, as most of it is completely on rails, with a really annoying tarot card condition, requiring you to kill every single enemy in the level, including all the enemies that show up during the minecart ride, which annoyed the hell out of me. The reward was worth it though, which gives you 666 ammunition for every single weapon at the start of a level. Thing is though, I just found Underworld to be the least interesting of the mineshaft levels personally, as it doesn't really feel as iconic as its counterpart, Stone Pit, making it a somewhat forgettable level. I suppose you have the second half of the level, which takes place in an underground tomb, as well as tons of secrets to find for those who backtrack from the minecart sections of the level, which is cool and all. I just think that Stone Pit does a better job, which is why this level is so low on the list. That, and that irritating tarot card condition. At number 25 we have Castle. The interesting thing about this level is how realistic the castle itself is, which is likely due to the fact that the castle itself is actually based on the real-life Bezdin Castle in Poland, if it was coated in snow. The building itself looks dilapidated and run down, with loads of walls smashed inside. There's also a few huts on the outskirts for storage, and another larger shack outside the central walls. The coolest part is the basement area, which features both prison cells and a torture chamber. No oubliettes though, which I found to be quite weird, but considering the fact that it was based on a real-life castle, it is possible that said castle did not have an oubliette. Fortunately, the Haunted Valley level in Painkiller Overdose features a more traditional fantasy castle as opposed to a realistic one. Personally, I'm more into the fantasy style of castle, so I wasn't really as big into this more realistic style castle as I was with the Haunted Valley castle, but I appreciated this level nonetheless. Number 24. Snowy Bridge. Yet another snow level, and I don't want to seem as if I dislike snow levels by putting them both on the lower side of the list. I actually like this level a lot, and I really like the atmosphere of these alpine mountains, which can actually be explored should you manage to get out of the level by accident, which I did. There's both a brief cart ride and a cable car ride, but you don't need to take either of them if you don't want to. I just thought it was cool to see these features. The only annoying thing about this level is the slippery ice, and if you take the cart ride, you're likely going to be hit by explosives, making it a bad idea to use it. The cable car is also pretty hard to stay still on, so I found it easier to just walk on the cable itself. Certainly not a bad level, but it's not really the most noteworthy one either. At number 23 we have Stone Pit. So here we have the other mineshaft level, and the moment you enter the second area, if you look up, you will see that you are at the bottom of a huge chasm. Unlike all the other levels in the game, this one has you climbing vertically up the shaft, using both ladders and elevators to navigate through it. The tarot card for this level requires you to find all the secrets, and it's quite fun to hunt them all down, as many of the secrets are in caves that you can't easily reach without a bit of tightrope walking. Trouble is that if you fall, it's a one-way ticket to the game over screen, so if you're afraid of heights, this level might not be the one for you. I just really enjoyed the concept of climbing to the top, only to finally see the sunlight at the end. For a penultimate level, I found this to be pretty cool. The battle music here is pretty awesome too. Number 22, Prison. This level is only available for people who play on either Nightmare or Trauma, and takes place inside a more modern prison than the one in the basement of Castle. This level has a great mixture of destructible explosives, tight rooms, and open areas, making it a pretty fun level to play through. It is far from being an easy one though. Players ballsy enough to pick Nightmare difficulty are treated to a huge difficulty spike, featuring enemies with automatic chain guns and Tommy guns, which can be extremely deadly if they get the chance to hit you. The trick to overcoming this level is its design itself. With it being mostly tight, you can kill most enemies with the shotgun quicker than they can fire a single bullet, and you really should, since these guys really hurt. It's all about using the level itself to your advantage to keep all the demonic inmates from escaping their confines and sending them straight to hell, courtesy of a giant sharpened piece of wood being shoved into their demonic ballsack. Number 21, Train Station. The train station in Zurich is cursed. If you ever arrive there by train, please tell me if you see any World War I skeleton soldiers with bayonets, because they are all over this level. Weirdly enough, this level starts off inside of a sewer, with enemies just waiting to be stuck to the wall with your state gun. Sado and Meso commandos make their debut here, and they both have devastating weapons, though the start of this level is more closed in, making it easy enough to take them out with the shotgun. Sadly, all this changes once you reach the actual station itself, where you are finally given the most powerful weapon in the game, the rocket launcher chain gun, and suddenly a huge army of World War I skeletons will charge at you. You know what to do. Put those rockets to good use and make Swiss cheese out of all of their pathetic corpses. This level gets harder once you reach the interior section of the station, as it is very open and filled to the brim with enemies that fire automatic weapons. Definitely a challenging level for sure, and the tarot card condition is one of the hardest, requiring you to never pick up a single soul. Quite frankly, if you're playing the Black Edition of this game, it's probably recommended to get this tarot card on Trauma difficulty, because otherwise it will be a pain in the neck to get. Number 20, Military Base. Now, it wouldn't be a first-person shooter if there wasn't a military themed stage, now would it? Tanks make their debut here, which is great, since wooden stakes make short work of them. I don't know how a sharpened piece of wood can blow up an armoured tank, but who am I to question Painkiller's logic? I can't help but love this fact though, as it just goes to show how little of a fuck Painkiller's developers gave about realism, and that can only be a good thing. Throughout the whole level, you will hear some weird comm chatter, and there's even a communist flying saucer hidden inside one of the hangars. It's a huge level too, with lots of open space to move around in, but it also features some tighter interior sections to mix things up too. There's certainly some fun to be had here. Number 19, Lab. The tarot card condition is the best part of this level, as it requires you to only use the bolt gun to get kills, and considering the fact that the bolt gun is my favourite weapon in Painkiller Black, this is hardly a problem. What is though are the lab commandos that snipe you with hit scan shots from above, but you are able to snipe them with ease thanks to the bolt gun's scope, which you'll almost never use, since sniping is barely ever required in a fast-paced shooter like Painkiller. The coolest part of this level is the techno music that plays during battle, which is pretty damn awesome. There's also big-breasted nurses that try to inject you with something nasty, which you have to kill, as well as doctors who breathe this weird gas at you. Plus, the lab commandos appear to be wearing the EVA helmet from the Halo series. Oh wait, it's a fishbowl, my bad. I get them confused all the time. I love the quirky enemies of this level, and the area with the portal is pretty cool, with all the enemy spawns, making for a great place to unleash the demon morph, which thankfully doesn't cause you to fail the tarot card condition. Right after that though, you have to flee from a bunch of demonic piranhas only to encounter your first Panzer demon before the level ends. What a level. Number 18, Colosseum. Colosseum is the ultimate breather level. It kind of reminds me of Blackrock Depths in World of Warcraft with its atmosphere. Maybe it's because Blackrock Depths was heavily inspired by the Roman Colosseum. Who knows? The interesting thing about this level is that it's actually spelt incorrectly. That, and there are booby traps in certain areas, which would have cost it some points if bunny hopping didn't avoid most of them. If you are a fan of navigating obstacle courses in games, then you will enjoy what this level brings to the table. It's a pretty long one with lots of weak enemies to kill, and really doesn't pose much of a threat, especially when compared to the level before it, which is the toughest level in the entire game. I really love the dreary atmosphere throughout this level, showing the darker side to what was a fun, family-friendly show for the Roman aristocrats to watch back in the day. It's one of those levels that let you experiment with all of your weapons, and just have some mindless fun, which can never be a bad thing. At number 17 we have Catacombs. Okay, so the only things holding this level back from being higher on this list are the colour scheme and the last enemy of the level, which is best described as a puzzle boss which can be killed by conventional means, but it takes ages. Other than that, I really enjoyed this level a lot. The structure of the level is nice and varied. It has a good mix of open areas and tight areas. The enemies are a mix between melee, ranged, and explosive enemies, so there's a good mixture of foes to deal with, and they all come together in the final section to make for a pretty tough yet manageable encounter early on. The best part about this level though has to be the battle music. That guitar solo is absolutely fantastic. At number 16 we have Cemetery. The first level of Painkiller is a great way to start things off. I absolutely adore the eerie ambience, and the lighting is incredible. It blends in so well with the fog. It's a very steady, easy-going level for the most part, where you are dealing with mostly melee enemies, easing you into the game, but also teaching the importance of movement. There's some nice secrets here too. I particularly love the building at the end with all the hanging corpses. It really sets the tone for what's to come. The battle music is also fantastic as well. Really gets you pumped to start slaughtering demons. Number 15. Old Monastery. The penultimate level of the original Painkiller is an odd one. Unlike previous levels, there's no real set path here as it is open-ended. Instead, it is a collectathon where you have to collect all of the pentagrams, and you can collect them in any order you want. I simply adore the ambient music in this area. It kinda reminds me of Metroid Prime a little. It really gives you that feeling of the journey is finally over, and kinda acts as the calm before the storm, so to speak, as you make your way to the bowels of hell itself. There's a nice variety of enemies here, with a few tricks up their sleeves. Some pretty interesting level design too, with the whole island being filled with caves and fissures to navigate through, with the ruined monastery on top. It's definitely a memorable level for sure. Number 14, Cathedral. This level is simply incredible. I absolutely love the sense of scale this level has. It truly is an incredible cathedral, with lots of huge open areas to fight in, and the atmosphere is top notch. I particularly like the ambient music. It's so hauntingly serene that I can't get enough of it. It's levels like this that make me want to take my fingers off the keyboard and mouse for a few minutes, just to take in all of the incredible atmosphere. And they said Painkiller was just a dumb shooter. Hell no. Painkiller is a work of art, and this level showcases both the artistic merits as well as the strong level design of Painkiller so damn well. Number 13, Docks. Without a doubt, one of the game's tougher levels, though thankfully you don't have to play through it on trauma difficulty, because if you did, this would probably be the hardest level in the original Painkiller. The nail guns wielded by the Hellbikers are devastating if you are unlucky to be hit by one of them, but that's before we even start talking about the rocket-wielding Hell Angels, which are even more devastating. Regardless, this level has a rather interesting structure as you find yourself maneuvering through all kinds of industrial areas, using cranes to traverse between each location. There are a crap ton of secrets to find in this level, so much so that it would take ages to find them all, and if you want to do so, you better be good at platforming, because you will often have to hop from crane to crane to get them, at the risk of falling to your death. There's just so much to like about this level, but at the same time it can get pretty difficult. Number 12. Dead City. This level is absolute chaos from beginning to end. So many explosions, so many enemies, large panzer spiders show up to greet you that can take quite a beating, bombs on cars and under tables. This level is literally a nightmare, and that's precisely why I love it. It just about sums up what Painkiller is all about. In a way, it sort of reminds me of something out of Hunter the Reckoning, with all the hordes of zombies charging at you in an urban landscape, only much more chaotic by comparison. There are quite a few things to see here, ranging from a shopping mall, a car park, and a museum. The only thing stopping this level from being higher on the list is the fact that the tarot card condition requires you to finish it in under 20 minutes, which may not sound that bad at first, but if you take into account the fact that there are tons of enemy waves, and that panzer spiders have a lot of health, it's going to take a while to get through it, so you kinda have to rush through this level in order to get the tarot card, which is highly recommended as the tarot card you get is one of the best. Number 11. Hell. Of course I had to put Hell somewhere at the top of this list, just because this level may quite possibly be the greatest depiction of Hell in any video game ever. This would be on my top 10 if it wasn't for the shitty final boss fight, because it's such a fantastic concept for a final level. When most people think of Hell, they think of fire and brimstone, but in this level, there isn't really much of that. Instead, you find yourself in what might as well be a war museum, because that's basically what Hell is in this game. It's a depiction of all of humanity's disasters, frozen in time and mixed together into one gigantic catastrophe. There's so much to take in as you run through this level, ranging from crusaders besieging walls, World War I trenches, plane wreckages, ruined buildings, a sinking battleship, and overlooking all of the carnage is a colossal mushroom cloud from a detonated atomic bomb, one of which can be seen lodged into the ground. Throughout the level, you'll hear screams from all the victims of these terrifying tragedies, swords clashing, soldiers panicking through the radio, demonic chants, and people screaming for their lives as they try to escape a sinking ship. This level truly deserves its name, and is truly a masterpiece, illustrating that no fictional hell could possibly match the terrors brought about by mankind. Number 10. City on Water. Venice has clearly seen better days. Loads of hell angels and hellbikers have taken over the city. There is lots to see in this level, and the design of it all is simply gorgeous. There's loads of secrets to find here, and you'll need to find them all to get the tarot card. You'll have quite a lot of platforming to do if you want to get them all. There are many famous landmarks featured in this level, my favourite being the Basilica of St. Mark. I love shooting enemies off the edge and watching them fall into the water. It never gets old. I really love how interconnected this level is. It's one of the things I always loved about Painkiller's level design in general, and it is at its best in this level. Number 9. Leningrad. If the final level of Painkiller is hell, then this level might as well be its sequel. Just a few footsteps and suddenly the Soviet national anthem starts playing as an army of Russian soldiers, tanks and airstrikes are ready to greet you. All the odds truly are stacked against you in this level. Heck, I'd even go as far as to argue that this level isn't even fair, as all of the soldiers have hit scan weapons that can deal insane amounts of damage per hit without armour. Despite having the urge to just charge in and mow down communists, it's recommended that you keep your distance and pick them off from afar to avoid getting swarmed. This is without a doubt the toughest level in Painkiller Black, by a mile, and if you manage to make it to the second half of the levels, you encounter suicide bombers who charge at you with C4 attached to their chest, eager to take you on a one-way ticket to hell. Everything in this level wants you dead, and the level spares nothing to make that happen. While it can certainly feel very frustrating to get through, it feels so satisfying when you finally finish it, as you have essentially defeated both the Russians and the Germans simultaneously by yourself. It really emphasises just how powerful Daniel Garner has become, showing that he is practically a one-man army at this point, easily one of the most memorable levels in the game for sure. Number 8. Orphanage. One of the most unsettling levels I've ever witnessed in a first-person shooter. The atmosphere in this level sends chills down your spine. The fog, the swamp, it all sets the tone for what's to come. Your enemies in this level are none other than the orphanage's former victims, children who have become possessed by demons that set themselves on fire and chase after you. Either that, or they will try to shank you to death with knives. If you think that's bad, eventually you will encounter bag babies who are placed into sacks to be used as fresh meat for the preacher to be butchered. Those that have been stored for years have finally awoken and will detonate whenever they close in on you, intent on killing you. Then finally, you have the preacher himself, the first of many to appear in Battle Out of Hell, who chases you down with a huge meat cleaver, looking for another meal. To make matters worse, the preacher is invincible until every child has been slaughtered, so the only way to stop the preacher is to kill every single child in the entire level. Yeah, you heard me, you're going to kill children, and lots of them. Have fun with that. This level is so twisted and sadistic, it's insane how they made it the very first level of Battle Out of Hell. Talk about making one hell of a first impression, for better or worse. Number 7. The Palace. This level has a ton of open areas, and there are tons of enemy waves to fight. It's one of the few levels where I got to use the Electro Driver a lot due to the fact that there's a crap ton of ammo crates lying around, containing lightning ammo as well as plenty of ammo for other weapons too. It's one of those levels where you can just have fun shooting enemies with whatever weapons you choose with minimal repercussions. Since ammo is so plentiful and the arena is so open, you are free to experiment. The level structure is interesting too. There's a lava fountain that shoots molten rock out at random, which can potentially hurt you if you get hit by it. There are also destructible pillars and some statues that shoot projectiles at you which can be destroyed. The enemies offer a reasonable challenge with the introduction of Templars who can shoot you from afar and protect themselves with shields, but it doesn't feel too overwhelming. It mostly feels like a laid-back massacre. The music for this stage is fantastic both in and out of battle. You have the Arabic soundtrack outside of battle, which perfectly matches the Arabic aesthetic of the place. I really love the aesthetic design of this level and how grandiose it is. The size and scale of the arenas only serve to make the level aesthetic all the more spectacular. The best part is, the battle music, which is noticeably more laid back than the other battle tracks, is the sort of music you'd listen to when you're cruising on the highway in the middle of the night. Number 6. Asylum. Yet another unsettling level, though this time you're not fighting children. Instead, you are fighting against brain-damaged amputees as well as freaks. I really love the horrifying atmosphere brought about by this level. After playing through the more hectic stages like Prison, Asylum is a harsh contrast as it feels considerably more tense. While you may not be dealing with chain guns or Tommy guns, the claustrophobic level design brings about an entirely new challenge, as you will encounter melee enemies that are kind of tricky to deal with, as they can leap at you from off screen at any moment, so you really need to keep your eyes peeled and be aware of your surroundings. These enemies like to feign death, only to leap at you when you least expect it. The design of these enemies is gruesome, and considering the context of the game's level, it's kind of tragic to see them in action. These amputees are not only brain damaged, but they are missing limbs too, and considering the blood on the walls, they were mistreated, having their limbs torn off by the abusive asylum staff. Later on, they can be found crawling on the ceiling, which is even more disturbing. To top it off, these foes are accompanied by freaks in straitjackets, struggling to escape their shackles. Some of these freaks are still undergoing electroconvulsive therapy, even after death, and if they get too close to their victims, their heads will explode. These enemies love to hide behind corners, just waiting for you to walk through so they can explode in your face for a nasty surprise. One of them is headbutting the door blocking the entrance to the building, clearly wanting to escape the horrors that were brought about in this terrible level. Truly one of the greatest levels in a first-person shooter to date. Number 5. Opera House. One of the more vibrant stages in Painkiller. The Opera House is without a doubt a visual spectacle. With all the red carpets and artwork on the staircases, there's a lot to see here. The level starts in the middle of an alleyway with several dumpsters. There are no enemies here, but there is a secret area over the fence. I don't know why, but I have always liked this area, as it feels both foreboding and calming. I don't know why, but an urban landscape in the middle of the night with no people around is kind of relaxing to me. You slowly enter the Opera House from behind the set. There's a lot to see before actually reaching the main hall, but when you do, it looks absolutely sublime. I love the colossal chandelier on the ceiling, as not only does it look impressive, but you can shoot it down for a massive white explosion. The ambient sound is accompanied with echoing voices, likely representing the crowds of people that will be watching the opera, as well as high-pitched screams from what could be an opera singer. To top it all off, the entire opera house has been invaded by ninjas. Yes, you heard that right. Ninjas. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, but that's the point. You'd think that you would be fighting ghostly actors or something, but no, that would be too predictable. Let's just throw in ninjas and samurai into the level, because why the fuck not? It's so absurd that I can't help but love it. I mean, I'm not sure where the connection is, but who cares? It just gives me something to shoot. And we all know that everything is better with ninjas. Number 4, Factory. This is without a doubt the most definitive level in Painkiller, at least in regards to gameplay. While it doesn't exactly have the gothic atmosphere, there's still a feeling of unease brought about by the ambient music. The biggest highlight of this level has to be the metal music that plays in every single fight. This is my favourite battle song in the original Painkiller by far. It really gets you pumped up for some carnage. There are tons of enemies in this level, many of which come armed with long-range weapons, so you have to be constantly on the move, shooting whenever you get the chance. This level is fast-paced, frantic, and extremely cathartic. Many of the arenas are open, and there are countless waves of enemies to deal with in each one, just waiting to be blown to pieces by rockets. If you're looking for some action-packed mayhem, this is definitely the level you want to be playing. Number 3, Town. This is another level that reminds me of a dungeon in World of Warcraft. If you've played Warcraft 3, then you probably remember the mission titled The Culling, where Arthas had to purge the plagued city of Strathome. In World of Warcraft, this location becomes a dungeon, showcasing the aftermath of Arthas' onslaught, and this level just happens to be strikingly similar to it. It appears, however, that this level has more to do with the Black Plague, as the buildings have crosses on the doors. I absolutely adore this level's aesthetic. Not only am I a fan of medieval style buildings, but the atmosphere as a whole is top notch, with some fantastic lighting and sound to accompany all of the burning buildings. It appears that the local townsfolk aren't particularly keen on outsiders, so needless to say, you can expect a warm welcome in the form of flaming torches and what I presume to be rotten flesh thrown at you. What I love most about this level is the final section, which has you going underground into what appears to be a secret hideout, possibly used by cultists. The whole plague might have been the result of a conspiracy. Though there isn't any concrete proof that it was, I just think that it's interesting how the level ends this way, almost as if it's trying to tell us something. It's subtle storytelling like this that makes me appreciate this level so much. That and the battle music, which has a really good beat to it. Definitely one of my favourite battle tracks for sure. One of the best Painkiller levels ever. Number 2, Babel. Everything from the starry skybox, the serene ambient music, and the gorgeous lighting makes this level an absolute joy to play through. It's also very challenging, featuring a large quantity of powerful foes, with plenty of open space to fight them in. It requires a bit more thinking than previous levels, but there's still a lot of action to be had. The battle music for this level is intense, as it should be, because the enemies do not pull their punches here. You'll be fighting advanced versions of the enemies you fought in the previous levels of Chapter 4, and they all have a trick up their sleeve. The Templars fire 3 arrows as opposed to just 1, and each arrow is fired in a different direction, which can be tricky to avoid. The Executioners now come with a grappling attack, which can hit you from quite a distance, so they should be dealt with quickly. Beasts are now fitted with explosives, so you will want to kill them quickly before they close in on you. You will constantly be overwhelmed in this level, but that's part of the appeal. It always feels satisfying to conquer this level. Number 1, Looney Park. While it may not be the first depiction of a haunted amusement park, Looney Park is without a doubt the best. The orange lighting throughout this level gives off a demented tone that accompanies all of the grotesque depictions of its attractions perfectly. The very moment you start this level, you are greeted with a massive sign that says Looney Park, with the 2 O's in Looney being used as eyes for a clown face, with fire coming out of his mouth. This sign is so striking that you can't help but want to know what lies behind it, but the moment players attempt to walk through the gate, they are greeted with a pit of spikes. Talk about a warm welcome. Those who are smart enough to jump over the spike pit will be greeted with numerous attractions, ranging from a helter-skelter, 2 carousels, one with buzzsaws that slash away at anyone misfortunate enough to be riding it, the other with electric chairs for those who would rather die from electrocution instead. There are also 2 buildings. One is titled Acid Bath, the other is titled House of Pain. While the House of Pain cannot be entered, the Acid Bath is actually a secret area, and inside is, you guessed it, a pool of acid with jump pads to cross over. You better nail those jumps, or you're going to get melted. Your reward for making it across is a set of gold armor and a super health. The downside is that you have to make it all the way back, and unlike most visitor attractions, there aren't any health and safety regulations here. That acid will hurt you if you step in it. Tired from all that jumping? Maybe you need a snack. The good news is that there's plenty of popcorn to be found here. The bad news is that it isn't the edible kind. The popcorn is actually a name of a demon which has a body that consists of many lumps that throws these weird red gas bombs at you, and you really don't want to get near them. There's also a burger stand nearby, but you might want to think twice about ordering one, because as the name of the burger stand implies, you will most definitely get sick if you eat one of those burgers. In addition to this, there's a gigantic slide with a ball rolling down it that is likely meant for humans to be placed inside, though on the way down there's a flamethrower that will probably burn anyone inside to cinders as they pass by. This is such a colourful level for such a dark game, and I really appreciate that change in tone, especially after the previous level. The whole level is so ridiculous and silly that it is instantly appealing. The ambient music is the usual carnival sounds you'd hear at any carnival, and the battle music is best described as a sequence of guitar riffs that I just cannot get enough of. It's hardcore. To top it all off, the final section of the level is a roller coaster ride that has you riding on top of a rig cage, with demonic heads attached as you ride through the whole amusement park behind a giant crevice in the ground. Beyond the fissure is a bumper coffin ride, a huge castle floating on top of a pit of flames, and a Ferris wheel with a pentagram shape in the middle. Now you would think at first that this area is off limits outside of the roller coaster ride, but it is actually possible to cross over the crevice with a well-timed jump, which clearly wasn't intended, as there are no secrets back there and the benches aren't breakable. Everything is static, though there are a few cool things you can see, including a few shooting galleries and stands. This is such an amazing level, and without a doubt my favourite level in a first-person shooter ever. Heck, this level is so damn good that it was reused in Painkiller Overdose. It's just so iconic that it's the first thing that comes to mind whenever I think of Painkiller. So there we have it, folks. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all later. In hell!